listening to the Touch 'em Up podcast. I'm your host, Double M, and on today's episode, we have UFC Vegas 104, Vettori versus Dolidze, preview, predictions, and breakdown coming off of UFC 313 and Magomed Ankalaev's decision win to claim the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship. We do not stop moving forward and look on to this week's card. So without any further ado, let's get this started and step into the ring. All right, everyone. We're back for UFC Vegas 104. Is this a good card? No, it is not. Am I still going to break it down for you? Yes, I am. Is it going to be the longest breakdown in the world? Nope. But I'm still going to do my due diligence, and we're still going to break the card down because there are a couple fights on here that I do like when it comes to a breakdown and a picks perspective. So let's get into it. I mean, we could talk a little bit about last week, UFC 313, or I guess 2 days ago. Ankalaev wins a decision. I honestly thought you could have scored that a draw. Like, realistically, I think it could have been 47-47. I thought Pereira did enough to win the fifth round because Ankalaev didn't really do much at all. I thought Pereira maybe won the first round. He lost the second round, and he could have snuck the third or fourth round out. He could have. Obviously, Ankalaev shut down Pereira with stepping to the outside of that lead foot, that straight left hand, even switching to orthodox and throwing the overhand right. He was catching Pereira with that little brief stance change and the overhand. He's technically a very solid striker. And that's something I did mention going into the fight, that I believed Pereira to be the more powerful and the better overall striker, but that Ankalaev was going to make it competitive. But Ankalaev got no takedowns. The only takedown, coincidentally, kind of came from Pereira when he swept him at the end of the fourth round up against the cage. And, I think they're going to give Pereira an immediate rematch. I think that's the only thing that the UFC is going to want to do, especially because I don't think they want Ankalaev to be the champion. But, credit to him. Very good straight left hand. Like I said, that switch stance, overhand right, and then moving back to southpaw. He was very good at feinting the level change to where even though Pereira was able to stuff all the takedowns, he was put on the back foot and never really allowed to come forward. And then when he did come forward, it was almost like Ankalaev had already shut down his confidence by tagging him with that shot at the end of round two, to the point where even when he was able to come forward, he didn't want to get on the gas. He might have got rocked really bad from that shot he caught Pereira with that rocked him. I think that probably, hurt him a little bit more than he let on. I mean, we know it took his legs out, but he recovered quick. But, his takedown defense, his ability to work off the wall, everything looked very good. That's something that I think you have to give him credit for, is he still looked good, working off the wall, getting back to the center of the cage, stopping the takedowns. Like I said, doing that little trip that he was able to execute. And yeah, they're going to do a rematch. I think something was wrong with Pereira going into that fight. I know he said that he didn't say anything, but it just didn't seem like Alex Pereira to me. Justin Gaethje gets the job done by decision. Almost got the knockout with that brutal uppercut in the second round. We got Ignacio Bahamondes winning by submission. I know a lot of people were on Jalen Turner that week. Our underdog of the week, Bruno Ferreira, comes through. However, not by knockout, by submission. Our picks weren't too bad. I think we went 6-4, 60%. Not the greatest, but not bad. But can we talk about one thing really quick before we move on, and the fact that Francis Marshall got absolutely robbed blind? I'm sorry, but Francis Marshall won that fight. And if you don't agree with me, I don't know what to tell you, because there is no way you could have scored 2 rounds for Myron Santos. He was winning the first round. He got dropped, then controlled for the remainder of it. Even though it wasn't a long time, that won the round. In the third round, he rocked him again, got a takedown. When Myron Santos ended up on top, he got reversed. Anybody who's arguing that Myron Santos won that fight had a ticket with Myron Santos in it, or a parlay with Myron Santos in it. And I guess you could say the same for me, because I did bet on Francis Marshall at plus 300. I also had Francis Marshall KO decision, sub decision, and by split decision. So, yeah. Definitely not happy about that fight, and 100% Francis Marshall won it. I know he hit him with some jabs and bloodied his nose up, and that is damage. But overall, I mean, Francis Marshall won the fight. And you can't argue with me. If you are, you're just not making any sense. But that fight definitely went to Francis Marshall. It shouldn't have even been a split. So I figured maybe it would be a split. That's why I took the shot on 11-1 at Francis Marshall split decision. But what can you do? I mean, that's just how it's going to be sometimes. But let's move on to this week's card, and we'll kick it off with the first fight of the night. All right, first fight up's in the women's flyweight division. We've got a battle between the huge underdog on the Contender Series, who came through with a huge first-round knockout in Yuniese Duben, taking on crispy Carli Judice. I'm going to be honest, man. I'm actually excited for this fight. And I do have a ticket, a two-leg parlay, 15 for 195 with Mauricio Rufy KO 1-2. I think I got it at plus 160. By the time it rolled around to fight night, it was like plus 120. That part cashed, and my second pick is Yuniese Duben. I'm taking her, man. So let me tell you guys a little story. When she fought, I believe it was it Shannon Clark? I think was her name. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know her last name was Clark. On the Contender, Clark was a huge favorite. And I always talk with my buddy Angelo. We'll probably have him on the podcast at some point. I know he'll be listening to this, so he'll remember exactly what I'm about to say. I said, bro, we have to take a stab on Duben. Like, I have no idea who these girls are, but I gotta take a stab on it. And I'm like, if she's gonna win, it's probably a finish. Her inside the distance line was plus 1,500, if I remember right. So I log into DraftKings. I load up $10. I go to throw it on Duben inside the distance. Right when I click the button, DraftKings closes the line. They closed it. The fighters hadn't started yet. The tail of the tape hadn't even shown up. They were still walking out to the cage, and they closed it, and they usually don't do that. Now, I'm not one to say fighting is fixed, but I knew right there that Duben was going to knock this girl out. I told my buddy, I said, we're about to watch a ticket go up in flames that they didn't allow us to bet. I think it was plus 1,500. And the minute she hit Clark with the first punch, I knew Clark was out of the fight. I'm like, dude, it's only a matter of time. And then a bomb from your mom, overhand right from downtown, sleeps Clark, nasty. Knocked out, stiff as a board, exorcism of Emily Rose on the ground, dead. And the huge underdog cashes via first round knockout. Now, do I think Yuniese Duben is a super technical fighter? No. Do I think the better fighter is Carli Judice in terms of technicality? Yes. She arguably should have beat Gabriela Fernandez, the woman who handed Wang Kong her first defeat in professional MMA. She's good on the feet. She moves well. She switches stances well. She throws good combinations. But something about this Yuniese Duben girl, the power that this girl has is not normal for this division. It's not normal. And I really think that the power is going to make the biggest difference here, to where Judice probably wins on volume, outpointing, typical Thai kickboxer style in MMA. Hit and don't get hit. Move around, inside and outside low kicks, jabs, 1-2s. Stay on the outside and kind of piece her up. Be crispy. She's going to win on being crispy, but something is telling me that we're going to get another finish from Duben. And even if we don't get a finish, I think the damage that Duben causes with the strikes that she lands are going to leave more of a mark and more of a reminder to the judges. And she could eke out a decision even if you think Judice wins. So in terms of a bet perspective, which I try to stay away from mentioning that before I take a pick, but in this case I do have some skin in the game, you got to take the plus 300 at this point in Yuniese Duben. I got her at plus 400. You got to take Duben. You have to. Because Carli Judice hasn't won in the UFC. And she looked good against Fernandez. Fernandez beat Wang Kong. But, that was a fight she probably should have won pretty easily. And she still didn't get the job done there. Carli Judice was my lock of the week, my underdog of the week against Gabriela Fernandez. I thought she did enough to win. She didn't. So in this fight, I'm going to take the underdog. I'm going to take the fighter who I think has more value. I'm going to take the fighter who I think is going to have the bigger fight-changing moments. And judging off of what we saw with Myron Santos and, God, I can't think of Francis Marshall, maybe that's what's going to make the difference here. I also think the grappling upside is on the side of Duben. I think she's going to get some takedowns. I think the power's on the side of Duben. I think the fight-changing moments are on the side of Duben. So I'm going to go Yuniese Duben. It's not the most confident pick I got, but like I said, I have skin in the game. So give me Yuniese Duben to win this fight. I would not be surprised if it's a KO, but I'm going to side with Duben by decision. 29-28, unanimous decision for the big underdog, plus 300 in Yuniese Duben to win this fight and go 1-0 in the UFC. Give me the dog to kick us off. All right, up next, women's bantamweight division, Josiane Nunes taking on Priscilla Cachoeira. To be honest, I don't really care about this fight. I didn't watch tape on this fight. And I think this is going to be a typical women's MMA fight, man. I really do. I think it's going to be slow. I think that the wrestling is on the side of Josiane Nunes. I think she probably gets some takedowns. If she gets Priscilla Cachoeira on the floor, I think it's possible she rides her out and ground and pounds her. We did see Priscilla Cachoeira lose to Jasmine Jasudavicius by Darce choke. That's not a bad look anymore. Look at how good Jasmine's been looking. Look at the win she just had against Mayra Bueno Silva. I do think Priscilla Cachoeira is live here. I think that she has more power than Josiane Nunes. I think Nunes did knock out Shannon Clark. Or not Shannon Clark. What was the girl's name on the Ultimate Fighter? Hold on. I gotta look this up because I cannot think of her name. Hold on. Josiane Nunes. Ramona Pasquale, nobody cares. Zara Farron, nobody cares. She lost to Jacqueline Cavalcante, lost to Chelsea Chandler. Come on, I swear she got a KO over this one girl. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, well, either way, let's look at who her wins are against. Bea Malecki, 4-1. She has a win over Ramona Pasquale via decision, who's 6-5. She has a win over Zara Farron, who's 6-6. And she lost to Jacqueline Cavalcante. I think that was a pretty easy fight to score. And she lost to Chelsea Chandler. If we look at Priscilla Cachoeira, you know, she lost to Jasmine Jasudavicius, but I think she's live in this fight. I think she's probably the more technical fighter. I think she probably has a little bit more output. She can have fight-changing moments. I didn't spend a lot of time on this fight, like I said. I'm not going to sit here and make up a technical analysis when I don't really have one. This is women's MMA. This fight's 50-50. I mean, I don't know what the odds are. Let me see. So the odds for this fight currently have Josiane Nunes minus 185, Priscilla Cachoeira plus 154. I would take a shot on Priscilla. I think Priscilla can win this fight, and I think if it goes to a decision, usually women's fights that go to decision end in split, so there is that equity where even if she loses, maybe they give her a split decision. So I'm going to take Priscilla Cachoeira plus 154, 29-28 unanimous decision. I think she can get it done. So give me Priscilla Cachoeira as the underdog here. All right, next fight up is in the flyweight division. You have a battle between Daniel Barez taking on Andre Mascote Lima. This is a great fight. This is one you probably want to tune into, man. I'm going to be the first to say I haven't been the biggest proponent of a guy like Andre Lima. I picked against him with Dos Santos. I picked against him with Mitch Raposo. And I picked against him, or no, I think I picked him against Raposo. And maybe I bet a little bit on Raposo, like by knockout, thinking he could get it done. The one thing I will say about Lima is he's a well-rounded fighter. He's got good takedowns, very good jiu-jitsu. We don't see it much because he's able to control the distance and the range so well on the feet. Daniel Barez is a good boxer. He's very good at catching, blocking, and trying to get into the pocket and exchange with you. Very good body work. He ripped apart the body of Jafel Filo. Looked like he was going to get the job done and then got taken to the ground and got submitted. And then in his last fight against Victor Altamirano, he dropped him in the second round and then dropped him in the third round. And won that fight just based off the knockdowns. But in that third round, in the second round, the kicks of Altamirano off the lead leg were catching Barez and stopping him from being able to close the distance. And seeing that makes me lean heavily towards the side of Andre Lima. Now, I'm not the biggest Lima fan. If there's a guy I want to win this fight, it's Daniel Barez. If I want to say who do I want to win, it's Barez. I like this guy's forward pressure. I like his defense for the most part. And I like when he gets on the inside, he exchanges. Very good shots to the body. Very good left hook, right hand. Solid, crisp, and clean boxing, but he doesn't really have the volume to go along with it. Now, on the other side, I think Andre Lima's a fighter who doesn't have the greatest volume, but he knows how to control the distance and the range, and he's very good at sniping opponents from the outside, touching them with the jab, landing the body kick, catching and countering, landing the 1-2, getting takedowns if he needs to. He's very good from the top, very good heavy pressure when he gets takedowns and gets on top of his opponents. Now, if you go back and you looked at Igor da Silva, I was on the side of the underdog in Igor there, and he was winning that fight. He was on his way to winning. He got rocked early, got hurt, but the pressure, the forward pressure, the wrestling, the takedowns, the control, it was all going to the side of Igor until he decided to bite Andre Lima and then lose that fight via disqualification. Probably never going to see him in the UFC ever again. Very similar to the what's that guy's name? Paul Daly. The Paul Daly, Josh Koscheck sucker punch. Let me see how many of you are a little bit older school of UFC fans that remember Josh Koscheck wrestling Paul Daly and beating him, and then Josh Koscheck getting hit with the infamous Paul Daly left hook at the end of the fight. I remember watching that live. Never been a big Koscheck fan. I'll say that right now. But in this fight, yeah, I think in boxing range, this is going to be a fight of range. You know, if it gets into the boxing range, I think Barez has more power and he's cleaner technically with his boxing. However, if Lima's able to control the distance, I think he lands the kicks to the body. I think he lands that rear kick to the body. He throws the jab. He chops the legs, and he kind of just outpoints Daniel Barez. And we saw how much the kicking game of Altamirano started to affect Barez into the second and into the third round. But once he closed that distance, bang, he landed on his chin. I actually like a play on Andre Lima by submission. And I know I'm talking about his striking, but I saw how easy it was for Filo to take him down and submit him. And Andre Lima, not known for his submissions, but very good top pressure, good takedowns, good ability to control once he's on top. And I could see him getting an arm triangle. I could see him getting a rear naked choke. And, he was able to defeat Felipe Dos Santos. I believe he won that fight by rear. No, he won that fight by decision, but he almost got the submission. Let me check. Andre Lima. Let's see. I believe it was a decision, but he almost got the sub. So he almost got the sub. Before that, won a split decision over Mitch Raposo. Before that, DQ against Igor Severino. Prior to that, I believe was the Contender Series where he won that unanimous decision over Rickson Zenedime. And I believe I played Andre Lima to win that fight as well. I don't love Andre Lima. I don't think this guy is like a top contender. But I think with the stylistic matchups, I think Barez is live for a KO. I think Barez is live to hurt him to the body. Very good inside boxing, left hook to the body. 1-2 is solid. Good left and right hooks, and he really sits down on his punches. Very technical boxer. The more technical boxer between him and Lima is definitely him. The more technical Muay Thai fighter, the more technical kickboxer is Lima. The guy with better grappling, I think, is Lima. And I see it being kind of competitive on the feet. But I think if Barez doesn't knock him down and put him out, I think we're going to see Lima use his full display and full arsenal of MMA skills. And we're going to see him take him down, get control time, strike him from the outside, land his kicks. And I think in the second round, he finds a way to take his back or get an arm triangle or something like that. Give me second round arm triangle choke submission for Andre Lima. But I wouldn't be surprised if Barez won. You know, I like Barez. Like I said, I want him to win. But based off the pick, I think the more well-rounded fighter, I think the sharper fighter is Andre Lima. And I'm going to take Lima by second round arm triangle choke submission. All right, next fight up in the bantamweight division, you have a battle between Carlos Vera taking on Josias Musasa. Now, what we know about the Contender Series is you probably don't want to be playing a lot of Contender Series guys going into their UFC debuts because a lot of them, it hasn't worked out so well. Listen, I think that the better grappler here is Carlos Vera, and I think he likes to play off of his back. He likes to go for triangles. He likes to go for arm bars, and he is a very tricky Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter. Just go back and watch the fight against Rinya Nakamura. He got taken down, he got controlled, but he was threatening with submissions. He was going for, triangles, arm bars, leg locks, and he's very solid with his Jiu-Jitsu. Josias Musasa has vicious ground and pound and very heavy power on the feet. I don't think he's the most technical fighter, but this guy just uses his athletic gifts to just kind of mow through his opponents, and he's got a lot of power. The longer this fight stays on the feet, it favors the powerful striker in Josias Musasa. On the ground, if he can avoid getting caught in a triangle or an armbar, then I think eventually he will just kind of pass the guard of Carlos Vera and beat him up. If you're going to play the side of Vera, it's Vera by submission, because I think that's his only way to victory. I don't think he does enough to win a 3-round decision. I don't think he gets a knockout unless he just tires out Musasa in the first 8-9 minutes of the fight and then has him dead to rights going into round 3 or towards the end of the second round, because I do think that Musasa's cardio probably will get worse the longer the fight goes. But yeah, I like what I saw from Josias on the Contender. And I think that style, although it does play into the game of Carlos Vera, playing off of his back, playing guard, throwing up submissions, looking for arm bars, I just think Musasa is too powerful. I think he's too mean. I think he has too much will to win. And I think he's going to kind of just mow through Carlos Vera and eventually, hurt him, get on top, and pound him out. Maybe he rocks him on the feet, jumps on him, and ground and pounds him, but I do see a TKO coming from Josias Musasa. Do I have a lot of faith in his UFC career? No, because I just haven't seen enough yet. But this stylistic matchup, I don't think Vera gets a sub. If he wins, it is by submission. So if you want to take a play on the underdog, you just wait and take Vera by sub. It's probably a triangle or a... yeah, I would say probably a triangle or an armbar if he gets one. It's going to be one of those. But I think the power, the ground and pound, the striking, I think it's just too much. And I think he's going to hurt Carlos Vera early, drop him, probably let him back up, hurt him again, drop him, and jump on him and get a TKO. Give me Josias Musasa, second round ground and pound TKO over Carlos Vera. Like I said, if you're on the side of Vera, it's Vera by sub, probably a triangle or an armbar if you want to play BetMGM exact submissions. But yeah. I think Musasa is too powerful. And like I said, I don't think he's the most technical guy, but I don't think Vera is either. And I just think the power is going to be the biggest difference here. So Musasa, second round ground and pound TKO is going to be my official pick. All right, up next, we got a battle in the light heavyweight division between Diyar Nurgozhay taking on Brendson Ribeiro. So both of these guys coming off Dana White's Contender Series, but Ribeiro has had a little bit more experience inside the UFC. Ribeiro's coming off that decision victory over Kyle Machado, where he was a pretty decent-sized underdog, I believe. I played Ribeiro by KO. I liked his 1-2. Kind of like the Jordan Santos. I saw a little bit of a similarity there where they're not amazing in terms of their overall striking game, but they just have a very solid 1-2 or a 3-2. They really turn that shoulder over, and they really use their long, rangy punches to catch their opponents. In this fight, I do think that Ribeiro is live to win here. He's a long fighter, doesn't really have a lot of grappling, doesn't have a lot of wrestling. I think if anybody's going to use takedowns in wrestling, it's probably Diyar, considering the fact that I do believe he's going to be the shorter fighter here. But on the Contender Series, man, Nurgozhay was able to find that beautiful head kick. And from what I saw on the Contender, I liked the way this guy strikes, man. Very good at finding the outside angles against his opponent, finding the 1-2, using the jab, and the way he set up that head kick on that perfect angle, hit his opponent, dropped him, got him out of there, man. I can't sit here and say that I think Diyar is going to be a good contender inside the UFC, But I think he should be able to put away a guy like Brendson Ribeiro. I think this fight ends by knockout either way, whether you're on the side of Nurgozhay or on the side of Ribeiro. I think Ribeiro, obviously he did win the decision against Caio Machado, but I always kind of thought that Machado was a little bit overrated. And considering this fight, I think Nurgozhay is more well-rounded than Machado. I think he's got more power on the feet, more knockout upside, and I do believe he has the grappling to go along with it. Let me look really quick. I do believe he has some submissions in his UFC career, or in his MMA career. Let me see. So he's 10-0 as a pro MMA fighter. 2 submissions, 6 KOs, 2 decisions. He beat Bartosz Sedgwick on the Contender Series. It was a head kick and ground and pound. Very solid head kick. Like I said, great angle, great setup. Before that, he beat Emiliano Sordi, round 1 knockout. But Sordi, at this point in his MMA career, he was at one time a very high-level fighter, very solid fighter. But 24-13, I don't think a win over Emiliano Sordi at this point is that impressive. Decision over Magomed Magomedov. He's got a decision win over Konstantin Konstantin Andreitsev, who, let's see what his record is. He is, what is the record? 19-14, so not great. But a lot of the Contender Series guys' records, they're not good. And the fighters that they have beaten in order to get to the Contender, usually their records are not that great. That's something you learn very quickly about regional MMA. So looking at this fight, man, I think Diyar is the more well-rounded fighter. I think Diyar, the smart thing would be to get some takedowns, use wrestling, get on top of Brendson and ground and pound him or look for a submission, because I don't think Brendson has much of anything in terms of a ground game. On the feet, I think Brendson is clearly live for a KO. He's long, he's rangy, he knows how to use his length and reach. And I know people are going to look at the fact that he got knocked out by Zhang Ming Yang. I think that guy is extremely dangerous, and I think he is going to be a hell of a fighter in the light heavyweight division. And I'm excited to see him destroy Anthony Smith in his next fight. But I like Diyar's ability to use angles. I like the use of the lead hand, the 1-2s down the middle, finds angles for the head kicks. He's a very technical and clean striker, much more clean and technical than Ribeiro. Ribeiro doesn't throw a lot of volume, and, you know, Nurgozhay doesn't throw a lot of volume either, but I think he finds good angles and finds his openings and is a lot smarter and more cerebral than Ribeiro. Ribeiro, that fight was very slow-paced with Caio Machado. Machado, you know, didn't have any defense and somehow still didn't get knocked out by Ribeiro when I played Ribeiro by KO, so that definitely, you know, made me kind of pissed off, because I think the KO was live there for a majority of that fight, and it just didn't happen. I mean, he kept getting hit with the 1-2, kept getting hit with the 3-2, and he still just wasn't getting put out. I think Nurgozhay, probably he could get clipped with a 1-2 and get knocked out, but I think he's going to find his angles, move in, close the distance, and I think he's going to put away Brendson Ribeiro. Give me Diyar Nurgozhay to get a first-round knockout over Brendson Ribeiro. I would not be surprised if Ribeiro won. I would not go heavy on betting on a guy like Nurgozhay, but I think he's clean, crisp, and technical enough to find the finishing shot on Ribeiro, who doesn't have the greatest defense. And I think people might want to take Ribeiro off that Machado win because, you know, oh, he got a win, he was an underdog, but I don't think this is the spot to do it. I think Nurgozhay finds those angles, steps to the outside, finds those openings, and eventually finds a big shot, puts Ribeiro down, and finishes him off. Give me Diyar Nurgozhay to defeat Brendson Ribeiro via, I'll go second round knockout. I think maybe he survives the first round because Nurgozhay is kind of a smart, cerebral fighter. So give me second round knockout for Diyar Nurgozhay. I think he gets it done here for sure. All right, up next we've got a battle in the heavyweight division between Waldo Cortes Acosta taking on Ryan Superman Spann. I'm going to be honest, man, this fight has dumpster fire written all over it. I think we do get a finish, and I don't know who gets the finish. Waldo Cortes Acosta, you know, former athlete coming into the UFC, and he's looked pretty good at heavyweight. But he did fight close and did not finish Andrei Arlovsky. Then he comes in and he spoils the party of Robelis to Spain, winning that fight by decision when a lot of people thought Waldo Cortes was going to get KO'd, myself included. But he used his wrestling, used his takedowns, and just exploited the holes in the game of Robelis to Spain. With this fight, man, Ryan Spann, you know, I've picked him in some spots. I picked him to win by submission in his last fight. He got it done. But he's a very hard fighter to pick and a very hard fighter to bet on because sometimes he just goes out and sleeps his opponent and sometimes he just shits the bed. He's 22-10, 6 KOs, 13 submissions. So 19 out of 22 wins come by way of finish. Let me pull up his record for you really quick so we can kind of go over what I'm talking about. Ryan Spann, Superman, 22-10, like I said, 19 finishes. He is currently 1-3 in his last 4 fights. He got submitted in the first round by Nikita Krylov, lost a split decision to Anthony Smith, got knocked out by Bogdan Guskov in the second round, and then guillotine choked Ovince St. Preux in round 1. I was heavy on Ryan Spann by sub, but I took Ryan Spann by sub in round 2. I didn't think it was going to happen in round 1. I'm an idiot. He got the sub in round 1. He's now going up against Salsa Boy, Waldo Cortes Acosta, who's 12-1 in pro MMA, 6 decisions, 1 submission, 5 KOs. Last fight, decision over Rebellis de Spain. Before that, unanimous decision over Andrei Arlovsky. Before that, a round 1 knockout against Lucas Bredsky. Prior to that, a unanimous decision over Marcos Rogerio de Lima. You know, I think Waldo Cortes has a lot of power. I don't think he's that technical, but he's decently technical for the heavyweight division. I think when you're a light heavyweight and you move up to heavyweight, I think the skill gap at light heavyweight is so much higher. Or I'm sorry, the skills at light heavyweight are so much higher than the skills for most of the heavyweights in the UFC. Now, you have to take the outliers, like Cyril Gane, like a John Jones, like a Tom Aspinall. But for the most part, like if you go to like number 8 to number 15, I think anybody can beat anybody on any given day. Ryan Spann is fast, he's powerful, he doesn't have the best chin, and he also has better jiu-jitsu and submissions than Waldo Cortes Acosta. In this fight, I could easily see Waldo just cracking Ryan Spann with a big shot and knocking him out. But I'm going to take Ryan Spann. Something's telling me that he's going to find a way to come up to heavyweight and get a big win. And it could be submission, it could be KO. I would probably favor submission. I think if he gets a hold of Waldo's neck, it's a wrap. So I'm going to go with a similar finish to how he won his last fight. I think he's going to hurt Cortes Acosta with a big shot on the feet. Waldo's going to shoot because he's used to shooting like he did in his last fight against Rebellis de Spain. He's going to try to take him down. He's going to get caught in the guillotine, and he's going to get submitted. I'm going to go with Ryan Superman Spann, first round guillotine choke submission. And I'm probably going to look to play Ryan Spann by sub because I think he can win by knockout, but he can also get a submission. I think a lot of people are going to be on Waldo Cortes. He probably has better gas, but I don't think he really has that much cardio. He out-wrestled the guy who has no idea what he's doing on the ground and no idea how to stop a takedown, no idea how to get up when he gets taken down, and a guy who got beat by Austin Lane. So, you know, it was a good win for Waldo, but I think a lot of people might be a little bit too high on Cortes going into this one. I think the power of Cortes Acosta could put out Ryan Spann. He doesn't have the greatest chin, but he's got a lot of power. He's got better jiu-jitsu, better grappling, and he's fought the better competition. So give me Ryan Spann. Give me Ryan Superman Spann to find a finish. I'm going to go with a first-round guillotine choke submission. He hurts Waldo. Waldo shoots. Waldo gets submitted. Ryan Spann, round 1 guillotine over Waldo Cortes Acosta is going to be the pick. All right, next fight up in the bantamweight division, you got a battle between Damon Blackshear taking on Cody the Renegade Gibson. This is a close fight. I will say that. I think the line is off. I think both guys can win. And, you know, I don't think a lot of people were expecting Montel Jackson to one-punch KO Damon Blackshear. You know, Montel Jackson is a little bit slept on in terms of his overall winning equity, but he put the hurt on Damon, just caught him stepping in, boom, right down the pipe and knocked him out cold. Vicious KO. Then Damon comes in, kind of beats up Cody Stamen, and gets a submission in the first round. Something that a lot of people weren't expecting. You know, I think a lot of people were expecting Damon to win by decision. We were on Blackshear by sub in that fight. Looking at this fight, I think when it gets to round 3, that goes to the side of Gibson. But I think it's going to be a lot for him to overcome early in the fight. I think Blackshear mixes up his strikes pretty well. He switches stances mid-combination, throws decent kicks to the body, has a lot of good takedowns. I think Cody Gibson is not afraid to come forward. He's not afraid to throw shots. He's not afraid to get in your face and rough you up, make it dirty, fight like a renegade. I think this fight is a lot closer than the line entails. I think Damon probably has the grappling upside, but Cody Gibson can also get arm triangles, go for arm bars, go for triangles, sweep off the bottom, go for subs. I mean, he is not afraid to go for submissions in his own right. Blackshear, probably the better overall wrestler. Cody Gibson is a veteran of MMA. You got 15-7-1 versus 22-10. So you have 32 fights on the side of Cody Gibson compared to 23 fights on the side of Blackshear. So almost 10 more fights in experience. And the experience for veterans does mean something. I think that it does mean a lot. But I also think that in this fight, I think Blackshear is probably the right side when it comes to a pick. Now, does he finish Cody Gibson is the question. I think it's possible he finds a submission because Gibson does like to scramble. I think at the same time it is possible that Gibson wins a scramble, grabs the neck of Damon, and possibly submits him. If you look at Cody Gibson's overall record, like I said, 21-10, 22-10. Out of his 21 wins, he has 7 KOs, 5 submissions, 9 decisions. He is a well-rounded fighter, so he's got 12 wins by way of finish. And when it comes to Blackshear, 21-10, 15-7-1, doesn't have the greatest record, but I think he is a well-rounded fighter. He's got 10 wins by submission, 2 wins by KO, 3 wins by decision. In this fight, I think in the third round, it sways heavily towards the underdog in Cody Gibson. In the first 2 rounds, I think it's going to be hard for Gibson to get much going. I wouldn't be surprised if Damon, wins by submission in the first 2 rounds or clips Cody Gibson. But if Gibson survives, I think the only way you play Cody Gibson is Cody Gibson wins in round 3. And it could be a KO and it could be a sub. I think it would more be a sub. He's got more subs than KOs. But I think a good look in this fight is Cody Gibson round 3 because he does put a lot of pressure. He does move forward. He does throw a lot of combos. And he does, put it on you if you allow him to take that forward pressure and put you on the back foot. And if Blackshear does that, I think he could get tired and maybe get finished and broken in the third round. But I think Damon probably grounds him in the first 2 rounds. I think it's possible he goes for a submission, possible he gets a submission. And I'm going to take it, actually. I'm going to go Blackshear via second round rear naked choke submission. I think he gets a sub on Gibson, wins those scrambles more often than not, and eventually winds up on the back and takes the neck of Gibson. Like I said, if it gets to round 3, I think it sways heavily to the favor of Gibson because he's probably able to push forward, probably able to put that volume on Blackshear, and probably able to get his game off because this guy does not slow down. But I think Damon's going to be too much for him early on. I think he's going to get a lot of takedowns. I think he's going to rinse and repeat. And I think he's going to find the back and take the neck in round 2. Give me Blackshear to get the job done. Round 2 rear naked choke submission over Cody Gibson. All right, next fight up is in the lightweight division. You got a battle between Alexander Hernandez and Kurt Hollobaugh. Hollobaugh 22-6 or 20. Is it 22-8 or 22-6? Let me look. Kurt Hollobaugh. It's not pulling it up. Hold on. Here we go. Kurt the Hurt Hollobaugh. 21-8. Okay, so 21-8 as a pro mixed martial artist. The records, again, are off on the UFC's website. They really need to get their shit together with that. There's always stuff that's not working on Fight Pass and not working in general, but whatever. Versus Alexander Hernandez. Alexander Hernandez, he won the fight against Austin Hubbard, but it looked like he was going to get finished. It looked like he was going to get TKO'd in that fight, to be honest with you. 21-8 for Kurt Hollobaugh. He's got 10 wins by submission, 7 KOs, 17 out of 21 wins come by way of finish. Last fight, unanimous decision over Kanan Kruchevsky. Kind of surprised he didn't get the finish there. Lost the decision to Trey Ogden, but was starting to put it on him with the boxing, but just got out-wrestled. And then he submitted Austin Hubbard in round 2 with a beautiful triangle choke. Switched from the armbar to the triangle. Alexander Hernandez, 15-8. Out of those 15 victories, he's got 7 decisions, 2 submissions, 6 KOs. He's been KO'd 3 times, submitted 1 time, lost 4 decisions. 4 finishes in terms of losses and 4 decisions in terms of losses. Last fight, split decision over Austin Hubbard. Like I said, Hubbard was starting to put it on him. Hubbard was starting to push him back. Hubbard was starting to put combos on him and could have gotten the TKO there. Prior to that, loses a split decision to Damon Jackson. I don't know how you lose that fight to Damon Jackson when you hurt him as many times as you did. And he loses a unanimous decision to Bill Elgio, where, again, I thought that he was going to get finished, and he somehow made his way to the end of the bell and made it through. He beat Jim Miller by unanimous decision. That was an impressive win, something I wasn't expecting. I believe I was on the side of Jim Miller there. So in this fight, I'm going to go Kurt Hollobaugh. I know he's a veteran. I know he's been around for a long time, but I like this guy's boxing. I talked about it in the last breakdown. Beautiful combinations, short, crisp, technical punches, very good body work, solid jiu-jitsu. Not the best takedown defense, but good enough jiu-jitsu to, I think, threaten Alexander Hernandez and work back up to the feet. I think this guy can take a hell of a shot. I mean, if you look at his overall record, out of his 8 losses, he's been knocked out only 1 time. And I kind of think the only way that Hernandez wins this fight is by knockout. And I don't think he's going to do enough to win 2 out of the 3 rounds. Maybe a split decision, if he rocks Hollobaugh or takes him down and controls him. I think if Alexander Hernandez wants to win here, he has to get those wrestling shoes on early, consistently get takedowns and hold down Hollobaugh. We saw Trey Ogden do that, but I don't really think that's something that Hernandez is going to be able to do. And not only do I like Kurt Hollobaugh to win, I like Kurt Hollobaugh to win by finish. Could be a submission and it could be a KO. I think Hollobaugh's going to stop Hernandez in the second round via TKO. I think that the boxing of Hollobaugh is severely underrated. He uses a solid jab, a good 1-2. He throws multiple shot combinations. He rips to the body. He knows how to throw his straight punches. And I just think at this point, although he's a veteran, although he's been around for a long time, I think he has the game to break an Alexander Hernandez. Hernandez has a lot of power. Hernandez can land a big overhand. He can land a big 1-2 down the middle and potentially knock out Hollobaugh. But, in 30 fights, he's only been knocked out 1 time. And I don't think Alexander Hernandez is going to be the guy to do it. Now, at a certain point in your career, or not going to be the guy to do it again, but at a certain point in your career, your chin does go out. I don't think it goes out here against Alexander Hernandez. And I think the volume is on the side of Hollobaugh. I think the combinations are on the side of Hollobaugh. I think the submission threats are on the side of Hollobaugh. I mean, just look at how he threatened with that armbar right into the triangle. Potentially could go for a guillotine. I think that he has the more dangerous game. I think he has the more active game, and I think he has more output. I think Alexander Hernandez can look good. He can look solid, switching stances, stance change crosses, 1-2, solid low kicks, and I think he'll look good early. But I think Hollobaugh is going to keep moving forward. He's going to start to rip to the body, start to rip up top. And I think he's going to finish off Alexander Hernandez like Austin Hubbard should have done. I mean, Hubbard should have gotten a TKO in that fight, and it just didn't happen. I think Hollobaugh's going to put that pressure on him, start pushing him backwards, start popping the jab, start landing the 1-2. I think he's going to rip to the body, hurt Hernandez up against the fence, and drop him for a TKO finish. Now, I said he's got very good jiu-jitsu. It's possible he could get a submission, but I like KO in round 2, late round 2, maybe round 3, for Kurt Hollobaugh here. I think he's going to push back Hernandez, survive the early storm, start to put him on that back foot, start to pop that jab in his face, bloody up his nose a little bit, and start to put it on him and beat him up. Give me Kurt Hollobaugh to get the job done here. Late second round, TKO against Alexander Hernandez. I think he's going to put it on him late. All right, guys, next fight up is in the featherweight division. You got a battle between Seungwoo Sting Choi taking on Kevin Vallejos. Now, if you don't know about the Contender Series, the first time Vallejos was on the Contender Series, he lost a decision, albeit a unanimous decision, to Gene Silva. Now, look what Gene Silva's done in the UFC. A knockout over Drew Dober, a first-round knockout over Melsik Bagdasaryan, a finish over Weston Wilson, which, it's Weston Wilson, but Wilson came back and got that submission over Jekasari. Seungwoo Choi, very good left hook. Solid jab, solid left hook. If he lands that left hook on Kevin Vallejos, he could be in for some trouble. And, coming off the last fight with Cody Steele and Rong Zhu, I was very heavy on Cody Steele. I thought he was going to get a KO, but he fought like an idiot. He made mistakes. He did what he shouldn't have done against the more technical and sharper striker. Now, I think Seungwoo Choi is going to be thought of as the sharper striker, but I actually think Kevin Vallejos is the sharper, cleaner, more technical boxer. Now, people are going to say, well, it's an MMA fight. It is, but Seungwoo Choi isn't going to look to grapple. If anybody looks to wrestle, I think it's probably Vallejos. Maybe he changes levels, gets a takedown at the end of the round to kind of, seal around here. But I think we're going to get primarily a boxing match between the two. And although I think that's probably the highest win condition for Seungwoo Choi, I also think Vallejos is a lot sharper. He has a lot more variety. He throws a lot more volume than a guy like Seungwoo Choi, who kind of is just fallen in love with his left hook. Go back and look at that knockout victory over Julian Juicy J. Arosa. Look at the fight against Steve Garcia. Garcia put the pressure on him. He got rocked early, but he put the pressure on him, pushed him back, put the volume in his face, and beat the shit out of him. I think Vallejos can have a very similar performance to his Contender Series win over Cam Teague. Some people were very high on Cam, and I always say this. If a guy is on the Contender Series and he loses a fight the first time, and they allow him to come back a second time, 95 to 100% chance that guy's going to win that second fight on the Contender. And I played Vallejos, I picked Vallejos, and Vallejos made Cam Teague look like an amateur in that fight. Beat him up, pieced him up, left hook to the body, right uppercut, left hook, right hook, left hook to the body. 1-2 left hook to the body. He was piecing him up top and to the body. Very, very good boxing. And I think that's going to win him this fight against Seungwoo Choi. And not only do I think he's going to win this fight, I think he is going to find the knockout against Seungwoo Choi. It could be the first round. I'm going to go second round. I think he starts to pick up on Seungwoo Choi, starts to pop that jab, starts to find his combos. He might get hit with a good shot. It might back him up. It's probably going to be the left hook if Choi catches him with a good shot. But I think he's going to get on that front foot. I think he's going to get on that pressure. I think he's going to push him back, and I think he is going to rip those left and right hooks to the body. I think he is going to touch that jab, boom, right uppercut to the body. 1-2, left hook to the body, right uppercut, left hook up top. And I think he's going to start breaking him down towards the end of the first round and then just absolutely put it on him in the second round and break Choi, dropping him against the fence for a TKO victory. Give me Kevin Vallejos to get the job done here. Second round TKO over Seungwoo Choi. Would I be surprised if Vallejos loses this one? Yeah, this is one I would be surprised if Vallejos doesn't come through as a big favorite. I like this guy's striking. I like his footwork. I like his movement. I like his defensive responsibility and the way he finds those shots in the pocket. I think he's going to push back Seungwoo Choi. Maybe, like I said, get clipped early, but find a way to come through it, get on that front foot, push back Seungwoo Choi, start to make him uncomfortable, and eventually break him in round two. Give me a second round TKO victory for Kevin Vallejos in his UFC debut. I think this kid's going to do some good things, and it starts here with a second round TKO over Choi. All right, next fight up is the co-main event of the evening in the welterweight division. You got a battle between Chidi Bang Bang and Njokuani taking on Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. This is an interesting one because I'm not a big fan of Chidi like I was before, because if you can start to push him back, if you can start to get him on the back foot, if you can start to become the hammer and allow for Chidi to start to become the nail, he will tend to break a little bit. You can slow him down, you can break him, but he's got very good striking. Very good Muay Thai, solid right head kicks, vicious knees to the body, vicious elbows inside the clinch, good 1-2s, a solid jab. I mean, this guy's a handful for anybody on the feet. But if you can get past those, weapons and start to get on the inside, overhand right, left hook, knees to the body, elbows over the top, get some takedowns of your own. He does have a hole in his grappling defense. He does have holes on the ground, but he's gotten better at working back up to the feet, defending takedowns, not allowing opponents to control him. But in this fight, I could see both guys winning. I do think it's maybe 65-35 in terms of which way I'm going. And the side I'm going with is Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Yes, this guy is getting older, but Chidi is no spring chicken. I think on the feet, the more dangerous fighter is probably Chidi. Or no, I would say the more dangerous fighter is Dos Santos, but the sharper fighter is Njokuani. I think he could piece up Elizeu from the outside. But the problem is, I just think Elizeu Zaleski is going to just crash forward, get in his face, make him uncomfortable right from the start, and start to land those overhand rights, start to land those left hooks, start to land big uppercuts, start to land knees to the body. And I think this fight's kind of similar to the Randy Brown fight. And I know you can break Randy Brown. I know you can knock out Randy Brown, but I think Randy Brown has more heart than Chidi Njokuani. And, Elizeu Zaleski made that fight close with Randy Brown. Yeah, he lost it, but he got some takedowns, almost got a submission, landed some big shots on Randy Brown, closed the distance against the fence, and I kind of see a similar situation here where Chidi's going to look good on the outside. Chidi's going to look good with his jab, with his low kicks, mix it up with the head with some high kicks, potentially kicks to the body, try to land some elbows in the clinch, knees to the body. I think the clinch work is probably going to be the most important thing for Chidi because we know that Dos Santos is going to be coming forward, timing knees to the body as he steps in, timing knees up the middle. I think those are all good weapons for Chidi Njokuani against a fighter who's going to push forward and pressure like Dos Santos. Yes, Dos Santos is getting older in his career. That is something I had already mentioned, but I think he's going to be able to weather the storm of Chidi early and start to put those shots on Chidi. Left hook, right hook, uppercut, shot to the body. Maybe get a takedown. I think Dos Santos is going to finish him in round 2. I don't know if it's going to be a knockout or a submission because I think it could be either. He could hurt Chidi, drop him, get on top, and take his neck for a submission. But based on the fact that he's more of a marauder than a submission artist, even though he will go for them here and there, I'm going to go with the fact that he gets rocked early, survives, starts to push back Chidi, land left hook, right hook, 1-2 down the middle, land some knees, start to push him against the cage. And I think in round 2, he's going to hurt him, drop him, jump on top of him, and finish him off with some ground and pound. Give me Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos to get a second round TKO over Chidi Njokuani. Weather the early storm. Maybe he gets rocked, but he survives, gets a takedown of his own, starts to land ground and pound, and I think he just breaks Chidi. Chidi's looked good in recent fights, but I think he can still be broken, and I think he gets broken again here by Dos Santos. So give me Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, second round ground and pound TKO over Chidi Njokuani. All right, now we move into the main event of the evening in the middleweight division, a rematch, this time 5 rounds between Marvin, the Italian Dream Vettori, and Roman Dolidze. I'm going to be honest, I do not care about this fight. I'm sure there's somebody out there who does. I'm not one of them. But based off their last fight, Dolidze made it close. Dolidze was an underdog, but he got tired, he slowed down, and, started getting picked apart by the sharper, more technical fighter. A lot of fighters are going to be more technical than Dolidze. Dolidze, big looping overhands, big hooks, big uppercuts, very good work inside the clinch, knees, elbows, you name it. The better grappler, 100%, is Roman Dolidze. I think this mainly plays out in a striking matchup. If there is grappling, if there is wrestling, if there is takedowns, I think they come from the side of Roman Dolidze. Maybe he wins the scrambles, winds up on top, and on the ground, Marvin Vettori is in a lot of trouble. That is something I will tell you right now, and that's something that's going to play out on fight night if the fight hits the ground. The jiu-jitsu and the grappling, the submission threat of Dolidze is extremely dangerous for anybody he fights. However, in this fight, I think it mainly plays out a striking matchup. I think the fighter with more power is Dolidze. The better fighter in the clinch is Dolidze. But I just think Vettori's going to kind of poke and prod and pick him apart over 5 rounds. And I think if there's a finish, it is the side of Roman Dolidze. But I'm not going to pick him. I don't like picking people who you have to depend on a finish for. And I think Dolidze is a fighter who's going to look really good for 2.5 rounds and then start to slow down. Now, he did hurt Marvin Vettori in their first fight, and that was only a 3-rounder, but you could tell the longer that fight went that Dolidze started to slow down. The power advantage, the finishing upside, the jiu-jitsu, the grappling, it's all on the side of Roman Dolidze. But I think Vettori can just be quicker. I think he can be slicker. I think he's the better defensive fighter. I think he's going to use his jab and his 1-2, his pull cross, and just kind of piece up Roman Dolidze the longer that the fight goes. You know, I was pretty high on picking Dolidze. I picked him in their first fight. In this one, though, I think over 5 rounds, I favor a style like Vettori, a guy with the cardio of Vettori, a guy who can come back from adversity and survive and still have the cardio to push in those championship rounds. I think Vettori probably wins this fight on the scorecards 3-2, and that's what I'm going to go with. Give me Marvin Vettori, 48-47 unanimous decision. I think he wins 3 out of the 5 rounds. I think he gets hurt. I think Dolidze has some decent moments, but I think overall the volume and the overall more technical striking is going to come from the side of Vettori, and I think he's going to win. Now, am I excited to watch this main event? No. Am I probably even going to really pay attention to this main event when it's on? No, but I still have to give a pick. So from a pick perspective, I'm going to pick the fighter who I think has better volume, probably wins more rounds over a 25-minute fight, probably has the better cardio in a 25-minute fight, and, you know, is pretty good with his defensive wrestling to not be taken down and held there. So give me Marvin Vettori, 48-47 unanimous decision for the main event of UFC Vegas 104. All right, that's it for my preview, predictions, and breakdown. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and smash the notification bell with a calf kick, into a left hook, into a rear head kick to make sure you catch all future uploads from the premier mixed martial arts and pro wrestling channel on YouTube. I'm your host, Double M, and I'm out.